Alright everyone, today I've got 3 live streams to do. Also my bromeliads are blooming, so 'tis a good day. Donald Trump has effectively seized Paris. I'm being hyperbolic, of course. Link in the description, archived, of course. Macron, who had been a fairly vocal critic of Trump when he wasn't in office, all of a sudden he turns around the second that Trump is elected and says, hey, you want to attend the grand reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral? It'll be a star-studded event, and you're basically the VIP that happens to be there. The other most important statesman other than Macron himself who will actually be in attendance. Trump has done this over and over again. By the way, at least the French government decided not to tear it down and build a mosque in its place or something like that. That would have been fairly characteristic. Trump will be in attendance. I'm sure he'll have a good time. And he deserves it. Because what's happened is the United States is now redominating as far as its role within world geopolitics. Under Joe Biden, you really didn't have any diplomacy. The United States was feckless and basically, I mean, it still will be till January 20th, conducted diplomacy in the manner of the Bush-Obama years. Now, the Bush-Obama concept is you draw a red line in the sand, you bark at the opponent, and then when they inevitably cross that line because they know you're not going to do jack shit, you end up backing down and you look like a fucking fool. Donald Trump takes more of the Theodore Roosevelt approach, which is speak softly and carry a big stick. Sometimes he speaks harshly, but really only on Twitter. Basically, if a country isn't fucking around, they don't need to find out. There's no reason to swing your dick out Lyndon Baines Johnson style and go to town, so to speak. He had a proclivity to doing this, apparently. He would show off his apparently enormous pecker and tell people that was why he was in charge. That's apparently a true story, by the way. Presidential decorum has never really existed in the United States. It's a mythology. Donald Trump is going to get the star-studded treatment, even from people that he clearly doesn't fully get along with, simply because he commands respect. It's the opposite of, like, Joe Biden. Joe Biden will schmooze with these people, but he doesn't command any great respect because people know that he's out to lunch, especially after his debate performance, I think. And so he's not going to get any deference. I don't think that Joe Biden is going to be attending the grand reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. I think that it's Trump that is attending that. There's probably a reason for this. World diplomacy is a lot easier when you've got someone who actually commands a degree of respect from other world leaders. It's simply easier. You can stop wars simply by having a strong person leading your country, because then people don't want to fuck with you. Well, if they don't fuck with you, unless you have an insane foreign policy, like a Bush foreign policy, then you don't need to go to war. Of course, we invaded Iraq for absolutely no reason. Donald Trump, by the way, has pointed this out on a number of occasions, making him one of the few Republicans to first understand that. I'm not surprised that it would be Trump and not Joe Biden that's invited to the grand reopening of Notre Dame. I'm not surprised in the least. It's symbolic. It's also a friendship gesture. Macron is looking at a situation in which he's going to be reigning over France, and the other dude, he doesn't have to deal with him anymore. He's going to have no choice but to deal with Donald Trump. So he would like to remain on reasonably friendly terms. Now, as far as U.S.-French relations, which are pretty strong, Trump is probably going to end up in a tussle with Macron a couple times during his administration. Macron will probably end up starting a tussle with Trump once or twice. Overall, though, the diplomacy is fairly normative, and a lot of liberal commentators, like when Trump would criticize, the government of some allied nation. I noticed that they didn't do this with Biden when he criticized the Polish or the Japanese, by the way. Two of our closest allies, two of the major military forces of a non-nuclear character in the whole world. Donald Trump, ultimately, though, I think will engage in fairly normal diplomacy. That is, that you had a lot of hyperbole under Trump's first term about, oh my God, he's going to piss off the British and they're going to go to war with us or something like that. That's not likely to happen. If anything, Trump is more of a peacemaker, not an isolationist, not a pacifist or anything like that, but more like, can we avoid bombing this other country? Can we avoid a trade war? I think that a lot of his threats right now with regards to things like tariffs and so forth, Canada, Mexico, we're going to annex the Canadians. While that would be funny, I don't think it's going to happen. Even China. I think mostly it's to back other countries down and to assert hegemony more than anything else. About the only country that'll be difficult with actually is China, simply because of the size of their economy. And Trump is willing to go toe-to-toe with all of BRICS. But BRICS is effectively a paper tiger because the countries that are involved in it don't even necessarily get along with each other. It reminds me a lot of the late atomic, early nuclear era, actually. The United States, of course, waged a disastrous war in Vietnam, but there was plenty of court intrigue going on in the Eastern Bloc at the time. This is why you need somebody like a Donald Trump currently leading the United States. You can't have a Joe Biden. Neoliberal policies have failed, fundamentally. Why you need that, you look at the history of that era, 60s and 70s and 80s especially. The Cambodians and the Vietnamese fight. The Chinese and the Vietnamese fight. The Chinese and the Russians disagree on communism and almost come to blows. Over and over and over this happened. For people that think that the West is dying, I hate to tell you this, but the West is relatively stable and has been for over a century compared to the East Bloc nations. They're the ones that are having trouble getting along. They wage trade wars amongst themselves. You had Putin getting stiff by the Chinese. You have doctrinal disagreements, etc. At such a time, the Western world has to be pinned together by a strong United States because it's the biggest economy and it's the biggest military muscle. So it's necessary. It's also therefore got to have the biggest diplomatic capability. Macron can't do it alone, so to speak. The British can't do it alone. You've got this enormous alliance. You need to have a strong sort of capstone to hold the arch together, so to speak. That's Donald Trump. You're not getting that with Joe Biden now, are you? No, instead you've got the fracturing of the Western world. The British have their share, and the French have their share, and Germany's got its share, and then you've got like the Visegrad group rising up, they've got their share, and so on forth. I think that Donald Trump will be much better at diplomacy. This is a symbol of that. That's about all. Peace out.